Accordingly, in crafting the referral letter, Pulte either relied exclusively on a single fringe blogger's evidence, he puts it in quotes, adorned, this is Abby Lowell, in an Inspector Gadget-inspired beige trench coat in the middle of an August summer day. Ed Martin, reviewing the papers, also posted an eagle flying over the Brooklyn Bridge. Obviously, they're so sensitive. New York Attorney General Letitia James now screaming at Lindsey Halligan. She wants desperately to dismiss her case. She's being prosecuted for being a fraudster, allegedly, even though she is the chief law enforcement officer of New York. And we've been following this case, and she just dropped this one. It's a good read because she's so upset about the fact that she's being prosecuted. She goes through the history of Lindsey Halligan and President Trump and our friend Ed Martin, who they make fun of, and our friend Sam Antar, who busted this whole thing off. It's a desperate attempt to get her case dismissed, and it's a fun attempt. Here's what Letitia had to say. We're here saying that our due process has been violated, and we want this entire case dismissed. They say, you know, Letitia James has already moved to dismiss this case for a number of different reasons, but now we're back because of this outrageous government conduct that started with Bill Pulte. It's violating Tish's rights. They say outrageous government conduct is conduct that is shocking. Like, set some terms here. Is it shocking? Is it offensive to the traditional notions of fundamental fairness? Does it reach that standard? She says this is the most shocking case of all time. In no case before this court has there been a more shocking course of conduct. The unprecedented and extensive and outrageous misconduct reached its apex when President Trump posted this to Pam Bondi, saying years of relentlessly calling Letitia a crook, because she is, and a criminal reached a crescendo when President Trump posted this beautiful message on Truth. And we read it here, and we felt the same. He says, Pam, I've reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially, same old story as last time, all talk, no action, nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. Then we almost put in a Democrat-supported U.S. attorney in Virginia with a really bad Republican past, a woke rhino who is never going to do his job. That's why two of the worst Dem senators pushed him so hard. He even lied to the media and said he quit and that we had no case. No, I fired him, and there is a great case, and many lawyers and legal pundits say so. Lindsey Halligan is a really good lawyer and likes you a lot, Pam. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. True. They impeached me twice, indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served. And now, President Trump. Now, Letitia responds. This indictment is coming after us because of unethical behavior. They're disregarding exculpatory evidence. They're removing ethics officials, and they're disregarding the Constitution. So here's the background on it. They say in March, Bill Pulte, shout out, he began his tenure and the agency transformed. They're calling it a weapon to go after mortgage fraudsters. Now, he was then tasked with running the federal loan systems and explains how the parties work. But as soon as he came in, mere days after being sworn in, Bill Pulte came in, he fired 14 members. You're all done, get out. No justification was given for the firings. No one needs it. They don't deserve it. This deeply troubling consolidation of power is now freaking us out because Letitia is in trouble. On April 14th, Pulte sent a criminal letter referral over to Pam Bondi saying James falsified bank documents and property records in securing her loans. Just one day later, someone from inside the administration leaked the criminal referral to the New York Post. Now, after the issuance of this letter, according to new discovery, there was a fast-growing investigation into Tish's properties and the mortgages with Fannie Mae. Then, on April 17th, Fannie Mae requested the James loan file and sent a demand for production. Then on April 18th, Fannie Mae, a fraud investigator, sent emails attaching social media posts by A.G. James's great niece called Nakia Thompson. We've seen photos of her family, and they're pretty horrifying. On an April 25th mortgage servicer, Mr. Cooper, he received a request to investigate misrepresentation of occupancy at one of these properties. And discovery shows that this investigation continued May, June, July, and August. You're like upset about that? Now, despite the fact that the criminal referral, writes Letitia's lawyer, purports to be based on media reports, no credible media reports relate to the allegation. The origin of the exhibits are equally suspect. They say, we don't know where this evidence came from. FHFA does not house individual mortgage documents, but Fannie does. So how'd they get the evidence? Many of the exhibits referenced were available from a single source, which also contains the only reporting on the allegations that predate the referral letter. Sam Antar! Sam Antar has claimed credit for providing Pulte with the facts. This dude dug into the documents, got all the public records. He's like, fraud, 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 fraud. Accordingly, in crafting the referral letter, Pulte either relied exclusively on a single fringe fringe bloggers' evidence. He puts it in quotes. Shout out to Sam Antar. A single fringe blogger's evidence. They're mad at him because he busted her. Says it took it upon himself to purchase these documents from a variety of clerk offices and unlawfully access, or either, okay, it's either this, or, so they're almost kind of accusing him, somebody, of accessing the loan files from the database. Yeah, he can go buy the documents, go to the county clerk, buy them. So what? Any one of these three is outrageous government conduct. From going and checking public records, that's outrageous government conduct that shocks the conscience. From doing an investigation, this will fail right here, as you can see. Doesn't even meet the standard. Unlawfully accessed, maybe that would be outrageous, but took it upon himself to go buy the documents, or got public open source information from so-called fringe blogger who's a genius, Sam Antar. Fannie Mae Ethics and Investigations Group were so concerned that Pulte may have illegally accessed the documents that in Fannie Mae, they launched a probe. How did you get this illegal evidence? According to the reporting, Fannie's Ethics and Investigations Group had received internal complaints saying you're accessing info that you can't access. We're gonna hide criminality so that you can't see it. The FBI does it too. So does the DOJ. So why can't we do it at housing? Intent on covering his tracks, instead of allowing the internal investigation to continue, he fired him. He said, you can't cover up criminality in my department. Pack your bags and get out. According to reporting, the internal complaint alleging Pulte improperly got the mortgage records was sent to prosecutors in Virginia, and Acting Inspector General Joe Allen, who believed the information turned over was required to be turned over, and he released some info and then he was fired. Now, after making the referral to the DOJ, Pulte continued his own investigation, even when employees of Fannie Mae themselves thought that there was insufficient evidence of wrongdoing. And nobody cares about the employees. They may have a difference of opinion. Doesn't mean it's outrageous to have a different investigation or a different angle. I don't think it was that guy. I don't think he did it. Well, let me look over here. Did you look over here? No. Did you try to look into any? No. Do you love Letitia? Yeah. Do you say prayers to her before you close your eyes to bed every night? Yeah. Well, then you're not going to find any evidence. On June 13th, Sean Soward, Fannie Mae mortgage person, said this is not clear and convincing evidence of fraud. She's a Democrat, I'm a Democrat or whatever, and I love her. Says someone else responded, this is demonstrating that Pulte was highly involved. You're like, wow, amazing. Is it outrageous to have a government employee investigating something within the purview of their jurisdiction? No, it's not. So then Ed Martin, you remember when Ed went out and was hanging outside the property. They're mad about that. Ed Martin, shout out, who according to his letterhead as a pardon attorney, has also engaged in a well-documented series of actions that are outrageous. While a pending investigation was underway, he sent their letter saying, Tish, you better resign from office. It would best serve the good of the state and the nation if you resigned. He said, if you resign, we're going to take this as an act of good faith. And the letter, they say, wasn't an investigation. It was just a pressure campaign to force her out. And he said he was working as an official DOJ employee. And that violates the various codes of professional responsibility and ethics. And he shouldn't have sent that letter. He's not supposed to use improper methods in order to secure a conviction. Yeah, and we'll see what Ed says in response to the letter, but obviously I think they're taking it out of context. But it's, it's interesting because like Jack Smith's team was putting pressure on Stanley Woodward. Jay Bratt was saying, if you and your client flip, we'll make you a judge. Okay, that's improper pressure. You lie, we'll put your lawyer in a judicial position. From the DOJ, that's the allegation from Stanley Woodward, now at the DOJ. Mr. Martin sending a letter over to her saying that her criminality is a disgrace and it would be better for New York to resign since she's the New York Attorney General is, I think, part of a standard investigation. He can make that opinion. You might say it's maybe not appropriate to put in there, but is it outrageous to just say a true fact? If you're the law enforcement officer of a state who's supposed to go investigate fraud and did investigate fraud, including President Trump, and then tried to get a $500 million judgment against him for a victimless so-called crime that nobody complained about until you weaponized your office and campaigned on literally taking him out. All of those things are inappropriate. This is an investigation. He sent her a letter. They're calling that outrageous. We'll see what the judge says. Yeah, Mr. Martin's first communication had neither any objectivity. You're not allowed to do that. Then Martin went out there and traveled to Tish's private home and took photos. It was hilarious. That lady came up, started screaming at him. The post with a photographer in tow was capturing Mr. Martin adorned, this is Abby Lowell, in an Inspector Gadget inspired beige trench coat in the middle of an August summer day. Says, and in what could only reasonably be construed as an attempt to intimidate her, then he posted a photo in front of her house. All this occurred while a federal grand jury investigation was ongoing. He's doing an investigation. He wanted to see the property. It's clear that Martin, a high-ranking official, undertook this to intimidate and prejudice James. I don't think you can intimidate Letitia. There is no conceivable reason for him to go stalk her after telling neighbors he was just happy to be on the block looking at houses. I'm just looking at interesting houses, he told Fox News. Just the opposite 2 days later, he says, I'm a prosecutor, okay? I wanted to go see the property. Yeah, doing an investigation. They say you're not allowed under the rules to harass anybody. He's not. He's doing an investigation. Additionally, the DC bar has clear rules of professional conduct, and he flouted those rules to create an attack on Letitia. Now, they go after Halligan. They say she was only appointed to attack Letitia, which is amazing because Letitia literally ran to attack Trump. Reports indicate that in the Oval Office dining room, Pulte told President Trump that Siebert had been picked for a U.S. attorney position by Democrats, and that Siebert was blocking the charges against James. Then Trump sent that message. Trump was persuaded by Pulte and ordered aides remove that dude. Then on September 19th, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office that he wanted Siebert out. Trump stated he believed James was very guilty of something, and then Siebert resigned hours later. Then on September 20th, Trump posted a statement on True Social. Said, Pam, appoint Lindsey Halligan. We've already read that post. At the White House the same evening, Trump said, I just want people to act, okay? They have to act. We have to act fast. Statute of limitations on many of these charges run out quickly. Less than 48 hours after Trump's post, Bondi purported to appoint Halligan, and we're fighting over that right now in the Comey case and in the Letitia case. In early October 25, Elizabeth Yusi, a high-ranking career prosecutor in North F-word, said that the team leading the investigation reportedly informed colleagues, she says, Yusi, I'm not going to prosecute Tish, and I'm going to write a non-prosecution memo. She had been with the DOJ since 2007. Way too long. Glad she's gone. She confided to coworkers, she says, I don't see any probable cause to think that James engaged in mortgage fraud, and I'm going to present my conclusion to Lindsey, the new district interim U.S. attorney. Then Yusi then suffered the same fate. She was fired. Get out. You're obviously an idiot, so you're fired. You're a career prosecutor who can't even find basic evidence because you're not looking for it. You're terrible at your job. You're a Democrat hack. You have no idea what you're doing. Get out. Yusi then suffered the same fate. She was gone. Also, another one, Kristen Bird, you're fired. Get out. For declining to bring the charges. Halligan also fired Maggie Cleary. Maggie, you're gone. Who briefly led the office after Siebert resigned. Shout out to Lindsey Halligan. She's like amazing. So she got rid of everybody and then brought the charges. Now, despite the overwhelming lack of evidence or support, once again, from career prosecutors, anytime you hear one of these maniacs just say career prosecutors, they're talking about Democrat hack partisan prosecutors. You can substitute for career Democrat partisan hack. I know it's long. You can come up with something a little bit more pithy on that. But the Trump-directed quartet, Pulte, Martin, Bondi, Halligan, then they actually looked at the evidence and they indicted her, since the career prosecutors wouldn't. Pulte offered information to Martin and Halligan, sent a private letter to Halligan, and then posted photos of himself. Ed Martin reviewing the papers, also posted an eagle flying over the Brooklyn Bridge. Obviously, they're so sensitive. So Ed Martin on October 9th posts a photo of an eagle flying over the Brooklyn Bridge. They say that's an obvious reference to Letitia James, who lives in Brooklyn. They're so sensitive. They can't even take it. Just a few hours, he's like, I like eagles and I like Brooklyn. There's an eagle flying over a bridge. It's not about you, Tish. Not everything's about you. Just relax. Just a few hours later, then Halligan went before a grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia, not Norfolk, where grand jurors had heard evidence and witnesses for months, and left with a 2-count indictment bearing the exact calculations that Pulte had given to Halligan. Minutes after James was indicted, Pulte came into the Oval Office. He's like, Mr. President, to boast that he and Halligan had pulled it off on their own. We don't need the career prosecutors who are just Democrat operatives, Democrat partisan hacks. That evening, Martin posted on X, promises made, promises kept, because justice is now being done. So all of that, it's like 17 pages of just like complaining about the facts. Then they give us some argument and law. They say the due process clause says the government can't do shocking behavior, and dismissal of indictments for shocking behavior is appropriate. And what actually shocks the conscience is hard to define, but this is clearly it. As the facts illustrate, Pulte, Martin, Bondi, Halligan, they don't believe themselves bound by the Constitution. Okay, what a stupid sentence that is. They intend to punish James for daring to take a stand against the president. Okay, we're in blog territory again. Some of this stuff, it's like you almost write it for the client. This is pretty pathetic. Like sometimes your client really wants you to write a motion for it. And you're you're like, that's not going to work. Like, well, we have to make that argument. You're like, all right, fine, I'll write it for you. Just leave me alone. Then you write it and they say, can I read it? You're like, yeah, I wrote it for you, basically. I'll send it in. We're going to get denied, but you wanted it. So you give it to them. So Tish is reading this. It's for her. Daring to take a stand against the president. She's like, yeah, I did. Both in this court and by making the investigation of her public so that this process serves as punishment. Martin, fearing that the investigation would not result in an indictment, was naming and shaming her. Halligan usurped an office, and now this is a threadbare theory of a federal prosecution. And so, Judge, you should dismiss this indictment. This case has been tainted, and this attacks her due process because of the government's illegal and unethical conduct. This is outrageous government conduct, and you need to dismiss the case. Now, if you don't want to dismiss it, we think you should, but if you find that the standard's pretty dang high and Ed Martin walking around her building and sending a letter is not enough to dismiss a criminal indictment that was approved of by legitimate grand jury, the facts outlined above are at least allow us to get more discovery into this. And we want more materials, so please send them to us, including all of these documents. So it's almost like a demand for discovery in the alternative because they know that this is not going to be dismissed on this basis. Signed by Abby Lowell, Letitia James, and her lawyer, Abby, the same lawyer who I think was responsible for Menendez getting a prison sentence, also responsible for Hunter losing his case, also now representing the fired CDC director, and John Bolton representing Letitia James, screaming about Ed Martin's trench coat and the so-called blogger called Sam Antar, who are both responsible for justice exposing these fraudsters for all to see laid bare.